Welcome everybody to Too Legit to Crit, a tabletop role-playing podcast made for people who've seen the yellow sign and share it with their friends.
Have you seen it?
Oh, fuck yes, I've seen it. I've memorized it.
God, yes. He's right here. The king. He's come.
Yes. Yes, we love the Yellow King. I want to go to the party. I want to be invited upstairs.
You know, I don't know that I do. There is an allure, a curiosity and a temptation, I will say. Knowing how it always ends, that's one of those parties that's better to hear about the day after, I think.
But the thing is, when that party concludes, we won't hear about it the day after. They'll be like,
That's fair. That's fair.
So, my name is Juan Santana.
And I am Juicy Garland.
And Atlas is not with us this week because due to scheduling conflicts, her game has been moved forward. So rather than talking about a tabletop role-playing game, Atlas is away playing tabletop role-playing games, which we cannot bemoan her for, and we will be seeing her next week. But Juicy has very kindly stepped up to the plate and, has saved everybody from listening to me for an hour.
Yes, I will bear this cross.
I know. You're gonna bear the cross of me talking for an hour.
I'll try to suffer through.
Yes, just try to cut me off from time to time, especially if I go on an anti-D&D tangent.
You got it.
So, how have you been anyway? How's it being in the Juicy Garland gaming world?
Very, very busy. I have been having a wonderful time, if a chaotic one. I've been doing a ton of recordings lately, both live and pre-recorded. A bunch of Tabletop Tailspinner stuff. For those who don't know, I am part of leadership over at Tabletop Tailspinners. I'm in All Our Faults, which is a Monster Hearts 2 actual play pod. I also am running currently Monsters and Other Childish Things miniseries Friday nights on our Twitch channel. And I'm also pre-recording some stuff for our Halloween run, which begins, I believe, next week. I have a couple things coming out that I was either in or running on the 29th. And I'm very excited. It's been incredibly busy.
Yeah, you just seem to be you're one of these creators that is always coming out with something. You're always, and not only that, not only your own stuff, but you come along to things like this where you come and you kind of join other people's streams and shit. And it's fantastic to see that people that I personally admire and people that I enjoy seeing more of are actually getting the exposure that they deserve.
Well, part of it is that I'm a slut, and the other part is that all drag queens are secretly sharks. If we stop, we die. It's just that simple. It's science, man.
So you heard it here first, folks. So no wonder on RuPaul's they're always moving around.
It's correct. Yep. That's also why they're so mean. And when they smell blood in the water, frenzy.
Yeah, I mean, so there's some insight for our listeners out there.
Indeed. Yeah. So what did you want to talk about today?
Well, we've got a few things to talk about. So I've been quite busy myself. This week has been a bit of a low, but last week we did our session 0 of Impossible Landscapes.
Oh, I'm so jealous.
I finally managed to take that book off my shelf and caress it mid-erection before putting it in my bag.
I'm staring longingly off to the side because it too is there, waiting, calling.
It's beckoning. It's calling to you. It's calling to you.
Yes, that Dennis Detwiller siren song.
Yes, it is an alluring song. Because we do actually have a game soft planned, I dare say, but the fact is that it's filled with a lot of very prominent creators, and trying to organize time is not being easy.
Oh, no, it's a beast. Oh, God, but I want to play it so bad.
God damn it, it will happen. It is going to happen. So, session 0 of the Impossible Landscapes. I did something I'd never really do, whereas we created the characters out in the open, and that is also backstories and bonds, because I want everybody as players to know about everybody else.
Oh, that's cool.
For 2 reasons. One of them, because it is Impossible Landscapes, and if there's a backstory that needs to be told, they may not get a chance to tell it. And second, because I want to lean heavily on the bonds and the motivations.
Yeah.
So I want them to be fleshed out. And when I want to kind of focus in on a player and do a scene, right, we're doing a scene with your bond.
Yeah.
I want everybody else to be invested.
Yeah, and I struggle with this sometimes because some people do open tables, some people do closed tables, right? Where either you keep all the secrets separated between all the players or you leave them open between the players. And I think I do favor open table, and especially for character backgrounds and character secrets. And that's because I want the players to be invested in each other, so that way they sense the stakes between each other. Because when a character has say an interlude scene where they've damaged a bond and then they have to play that out with their like ex-wife who they're still obsessed with, right? And they have to have some sort of bond damage there, and it's a rough emotional scene. Even at a home game, I want that played out, right? It's not just for AP. I really believe in leaning into character in all games. And if it's just the GM or handler in this case and the player, that one player really engaging here, the other players can kind of turn off and stop listening. Whereas if everyone's aware of the backstory, the context of these characters, and they get engaged, I think that makes all of it meaningful for everybody, and that's important, frankly.
Yeah, and I think we were talking about it previously before we went on air, and we can kind of lean into it now, is the inherent problem that Delta Green has.
Yes.
With the bonds and the motivations. And I say it an inherent problem. Maybe I'm being a bit too dramatic on that. Leaning on that.
Yeah, I would say that the game itself puts them out there, right? Like, motivations themselves are a rich opportunity to really provide detail for a character that is meaningful, deep, and engaging, but there's not a ton of mechanical additive value there within the game. So character, or players rather, who tend to be the kind of players, and I said this when we were talking beforehand, who don't understand that the game itself is critical of police and like power institutions, and really want to do cop cosplay in their Delta Green, and don't understand the concept of irony, they don't really invest often in motivations or really put consideration into the impact of harming your bond because you're using it as ablative sanity. So when you do that, you take away from the opportunity to have a full and rich character, when all of these characters tend to have a short half-life and they tend to diminish over time, and you really want to engage with that to get as much as you can out of the game and the character, because there's so much there. It's why that game is my favorite game. But those players don't access that whatsoever, and I found that at a lot of tables when I've played with a lot of internet strangers, we'll say.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. It is my favorite game as well. And I think if you've got a table of players who get it, then you can have the greatest
magic
time.
Yeah,
it is fantastic.
And that's why when I introduce the game, I really stress new players coming up with emotionally charged bonds and emotionally charged motivations. Like last time I was on, we talked about my generator, but more important to talk about is that like emotional charge and what I think of as like potential energy is really stacked, and priming new players to put that effort in up front really gets them engaged with the game really fast. So a few weeks ago, I'm in the Boston area, so there's a Boston gamers group, and there was a live event where I helped volunteer to like GM some games, and I brought in Delta Green, and we ran Last Things Last. And I prepped characters, but I left bonds and motivations blank, and then I had them fill them in, but I gave them, using my generators, like the sort of keywords to get them to put something in. And they, never having played Delta Green before, but maybe they listened to a couple of them, listened to Glass Cannon play Delta Green, they understood some of the concepts and they really dove in. And when they had that like emotionally charged detail in the character sheet, so suddenly they had these complete characters that they were really, really into. And then they were able to gravitate to the game in a way that I've seen other players not quite take to, just because they don't get as invested in the journey.
Yeah, I mean, it's like with my table. I got the players sort of warmed up to Delta Green before I threw them into Impossible Landscape. So we did a run of operations. We did like Last Things Last. We did Viscid. Music from a Darkened Room, Sweetness, ended up on Ex Oblivione. which is
Classic.
fantastic. But that was very much, okay, build your character, give us a back, here we go. Now, this time around, what we've done is we created the characters, and instead of kind of going, right, pick a profession, it's like, tell me about your character. So I've got, get this, a psychic detective.
Okay. Yes. And yes.
Mentalist. So imagine the mentalist, or imagine psych, or imagine light to me, something. So that's what I've got, all right, with an actor's background. I have got a mob freelance wet work specialist.
Okay.
So basically, we've just bastardized the spec ops profession, and then I've also got a mob middle management character.
So like a senior goon.
Yeah, like a bit more than a goon. He runs a dock for the mob.
Yeah, that's why he reached senior level. Like he's like a fresh manager. You like spent a couple of years as a goon. He's been promoted to senior goon.
Yeah.
Like the next position is like director of goon operations. Is the next step.
He could always go another direction, go into HR.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
That doesn't have a long shelf life though.
Right. No, not in the mob. Well,
No.
You know what?
No.
If anyone has good HR, it's the mob, because HR is not for the employees. HR is to protect the company.
That is fair
against
point.
the bureaucracy.
That is a fair point. Yeah, that is a fair point. You know, they didn't read the policy. Just a quick shout out to Justin. Our very own Justin is in the chat. He just put something to say that he likes to get players to write down X number of rumors about their characters, X being the number of players at the table, and these may or may not be true. I then shuffle them up and dish them out so they have all heard of each other a tiny bit.
I love that. That's excellent.
And he's also got 100% death rate in my Delta Green games. So, yeah,
I like murder in games. Yeah, murdering my players is fun.
What we also did was we did like a couple of Bond session scenes where, you know, it's a session 0. So okay, pick a scene. What happens? Give me a Bond, and we kind of played that out, and it made the Bonds feel tangible.
Ooh.
It made them into NPCs directly.
Hell yeah.
So it's like, okay, and one of the players has got the fucking greatest Bond, who is my favorite NPC ever. He's the psychic detective with an actor's background. So he has chosen as a Bond this sort of late-aged actress, of a dame like. So imagine you're Judi Dench, or imagine...
I've done that a lot of times.
Fair. So yeah, this really sort of, and I kind of modelled her. Have you ever seen Arrested Development?
Of course.
The matriarch?
Yes.
That's who I basically copied as this character. So she is an absolute arsehole.
That's wonderful. Yeah, God rest Jessica Walter.
That was what was the character name?
Lucille Bluth.
There we go, Lucille. So yeah, basically I leaned on Lucille Bluth. And to be honest, these characters, even before we started playing, already feel like there's something special there.
Amazing. I love that.
So that's going to be Impossible Landscapes. We're starting in earnest on Wednesday.
Oh, that's going to be so good. Night Floors is such a good scenario. It really sets up the vibe, the strangeness. It really gets that mystery rolling. It sets up stakes. And it's interesting to me because Night Floors itself was a really, I think, early scenario for Delta Green that they published. And then they used that for Impossible Landscapes. It's not like it was originally written for Impossible Landscapes, I don't believe. And it's really fascinating to me that had so much potential for such a longer story after a very minor rework of sort of the end state.
Yeah, it's the thing. Unless you've read it, it's so hard to kind of accurately describe.
The whole book is like that.
Yeah, that it's so hard to kind of go, this is why this is so good.
Yes.
This is what, and what I'm going to do is basically we're going to be playing this game, and at every little interlude, I'm going to go, see, see, see. I didn't come up with that. They did.
Yeah. Oh God. And like reading the book too, the way it's written, and it's not just like the copy itself, but also the way the book is visually designed, just makes you feel like you are going crazy.
Yeah.
The whole time. Just,
I mean,
yeah, it unravels itself. It's amazing.
To put it this way, I've actually got a copy of The King in Yellow on my iPad bookshelf,
Oh,
and
yep.
I refuse to read it.
Oh, really? That's hilarious.
It's
Yeah,
like-
I have
it's
the
like, nope.
annotated King in Yellow over there next to Impossible Landscapes. Both
Yeah.
of them from Arc Dream. Yeah.
So it's like, I've got this
Well-
fucking book. It's like, you know what? Just in case, I'm going to fucking read that.
That tracks.
But that is purely because of this book, this work of art. It is phenomenal. But before we kind of carry on down the Delta Green rabbit hole, because we're going to talk a lot about it.
Oh, yeah.
Another thing I did, which I'm incredibly honoured and proud to have been a part of, is we played in the Darkest House. The
Nice.
apartment 1515 for the Tabletop Tailspinners Network.
And how did it go for you? Without
It was-
spoiling too much.
Without spoiling too much, it
Yes.
was fucking awesome.
Yes. And who is in the cast? Remind me.
So, in the cast is myself,
Mhm.
it is Andy, and Peachy.
Okay.
And it is GM'd by Mistress Winter.
Yes, who is wonderful, who GMs All Our Faults. I love her to death.
Yeah,
She's a
she is
phenomenal GM.
outstanding. I mean, she's GM'd a few times for me, and absolutely phenomenal. And she leaned heavily into the horror of this,
she's so good.
of this thing, and it just came out. It was funny. It was scary. We had characters that really sort of carried some depth to them.
Awesome. Good.
Because we based them off Monster Hearts characters.
Heck yeah.
So
yeah.
we did a lot of like strings between us.
Mm-hmm.
And that just it came out so well. And I believe that is tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
I am not 100% certain of the schedule, so I cannot confirm nor deny. You know, Winter. So I was in sort of the AP space for a long time, not making a lot of headway. And the first time I really felt like I did was actually with Winter as a GM. She was running Star Trek 2D20, and I played a Vulcan science officer. And that is what sort of snowballed into me doing Monster Hearts with her. And then her producing something with Abby from All Our Faults, who was running Monster Hearts, and then, or All Our Faults rather. And then we got into All Our Faults with Winter as GM. And I'm so happy because that also got me in touch with Emma, who of course started TTN, and Abby, who's in All Our Faults. God, thank God for Winter.
Yeah,
love her to death.
Winter and I started talking a few months back, just casually chatting, hanging out, sort of thing. It was like, right, we need to be in games. We need to, we'd be in games together. Winter will be in our Impossible Landscapes game.
Yes.
Whenever we manage to get that off the ground.
One day
that game will happen, and it's going to be fucking phenomenal.
It'll happen.
It'll happen. It will happen. We're going to put it out into the universe, and it will happen. But then Winter stepped up and did Daggerheart for us for one
I've
of
still
our
yet to
shows.
play that.
It's good. It's really like
I've heard good things. Yeah,
I am not a Critical Role fan. Okay, I will say that.
Me too, actually. Yeah, I've never been able to get into it.
Yeah, so I don't necessarily think that everything they touch is gold. So, to be fair, I kind of went into Daggerheart going, this is going to be shit. But no, I was wrong. I was happily mistaken. I was happily wrong. And it is a solid system.
Awesome.
I think they've got something there.
That's cool. Yeah, I still haven't picked up a copy because I have so many games just stacked up waiting for me to read through them. Every time I go to a convention, I just like scour the indie like tables, just trying to find new stuff that fascinates me, and that has all added up so much that I haven't gotten Daggerheart yet, but I need to. Yeah.
I bought and we did a recent jaunt to London, and we always try and buy a game there, and I bought VTM. I bought Vampire the Masquerade.
Good choice.
5th edition. But it didn't come with a PDF, because normally nowadays the common practice is anything you get at a local game store comes with a PDF. This one didn't. I was a bit pissed off, but then I went, shit, wait a minute. last year I bought the VTM Humble bundle.
Oh, did you have it?
Yeah, I already had the PDF and everything.
That's
It
hilarious.
was like
Okay.
fucking 20 odd bucks. So I've got that. I've also bought the fucking Call of Cthulhu one that's just been on recently.
Not 7th edition came out what 2 years ago. So which book then?
It will be 7th, but it is the Humble bundle, so you
Oh,
get
okay,
the core
okay.
book and then you get like a bunch of other
Got it.
books.
Yeah.
So I've also bought that as well. So I'm just accumulating systems here.
I'm a
make
hoarder.
a point of reading through them. So because I got the Arc Dream one as well, so I've got nearly every Delta Green book in PDF format.
Oh yeah, I mean, Arc Dream put so much care into what they're putting out there, like A God's Teeth, which just won an NA, written by Caleb Stokes, who is fantastic. I've gotten to know Caleb, thankfully, and that book is just, in his own words, a horrible little book, and it's amazing.
It does give off a very different vibe to Impossible Landscapes.
Well, I mean, Dennis Detwiller is a very different person, I think, from Caleb Stokes. It's part of it. But yeah, so I was really lucky at Gen Con. I mentioned this to you before we started. I got to run a Delta Green live play on stage, and I played with Ross Payton and Caleb Stokes, who write for Delta Green. And that was the day before Caleb won the NE, and I felt so intimidated because I ran a King in Yellow scenario based on a footnote in Impossible Landscapes.
That's amazing.
I'm really happy with how it came out, and there is an audio recording of it, and if it ever gets edited, it will be published by Ross, so we'll keep our fingers crossed.
I want to hear that.
Yeah, I'll keep you posted on that.
100% want to hear that.
Yeah, and that'll end up on Roleplay Public Radio, which Ross puts out, which is a really cool podcast if you don't know. Ross has like 100 podcasts. It's ridiculous. But Roleplay Public Radio is where he does like actual plays of one-shots or limited scenarios of a bunch of different games he's either worked on or is interested in. And I do like that pod a lot. And yeah, our scenario will be there. He does a bunch of Delta Green there. He also does like Unknown Armies and a bunch of other games.
I mean, that sounds amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, to be honest, you're rubbing shoulders with royalty.
I'm just a schmo. But yeah, so I should tell you a little bit about that scenario. So in Impossible Landscapes, there's a footnote about a play that happened in New York off Broadway based on The King in Yellow in the 50s. And I had 90 minutes for my live play slot. So I took them to the theater in real time.
Nice.
Yeah, they saw the play in real time. That was the scenario. And I felt like it went really well as like reality kind of dissolved and shifted around them. It was a real fun time to run. And yeah, so I had Kat from All Our Faults, and then my friend Maz, who's also in the actual play space. And everyone brought in these like ridiculous characters going to the theater. Like Kat was a like wealthy financier of this particular theater, and Maz was like a begrudging theater critic. Caleb was this failed playwright. Ross was like he was sort of like a theater critic / CIA plant looking for communists. And
that's amazing.
They all just sort of, and the idea was they all had to sit next to each other as this play goes on, and it was in the style of like absurdist theater of the 1950s, like Waiting for Godot. Yeah. So I listened to or read a bunch of absurdist plays from the period, and then constructed in my mind what Her Grey Song would look like and sound like. And then I mapped out what that play would look and sound like, and then figured out how the world would change around it. And that was the scenario, and it was really cool.
That sounds amazing. That does sound fantastic. Because, I mean, yeah, a lot of what happens in Impossible Landscapes before the agents actually take center stage, pun intended, there's so fucking much.
Yeah, and a lot of it is all illusions and like referential. Nothing is directly stated or described, so you kind of have to fill the gaps in your own imagination about what it is. And it's also, I think, really intimidating to construct what does an adaptation of The King in Yellow not only look and sound like, but what happens and how do you do it justice. And that was, I set up a big task for myself, and a lot of it is really not showing chunks of it and just showing the impact of it and finding ways to do that, so then you can imply sort of what's going on stage throughout parts of it, so you're not showing the whole thing.
But it's also you're doing it to people who are very familiar with the source material. You're not doing it.
Yes, yeah. Two who weren't, and two who deeply were.
Yeah, so you're not doing it for just people where you could pretty much, let's be honest,
Yeah.
get
Say
away
anything,
with
yeah.
say anything. Okay, then this happened. Then a dragon comes down or whatever.
Mhm.
Whereas if you're doing it with people who were actually at least part of the company that produces it,
Yeah,
who
I know.
will probably know it back to front.
Yeah, why do I
And the
do these
fa-
things to myself? Frankly.
Oh,
But-
honestly, if anyone would be able to be in that position and flourish, it's fucking you.
I mean, I was gonna do that to myself anyways, whether or not they were there, because like I'm the kind of idiot who gets the king in yellow tattooed on them, and then like sets that high bar just because I like pain. I guess I just want to suffer.
But
That's just it.
you are a huge fan of the source. You are.
Oh yeah.
You know.
Oh yeah.
So I think if anyone is to do it justice, it would be you. Like,
And I
no
hope I
doubt in my
did.
mind.
I feel like I did at least a good enough effort. I feel like it turned out reasonably well. Yeah, and it's funny, I then played the scenario with like non-AP people, just friends,
Yeah.
after Gen Con, just to see how it would play with people who don't know the material, who don't do performance. And it went
Mhm.
very differently because they have different attitudes, and they usually
Yeah.
play Call of Cthulhu, because it was like my Call of Cthulhu home group.
Right.
But they still really enjoyed it, even if they didn't quite get the source material, because it got weird. It gets very strange, right? It has to.
If you're ever running that again, I'd be very interested in playing it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we could talk offline about that.
Yeah, I'd be interested to see not only just what you've done with it, but I want to see what sort of things your mind can craft. I want to
Yeah.
you know when you deal with somebody and you kind of begin to get to know somebody.
Yeah.
And they create stuff, you just kind of want to go, I want to see what they're capable of creating. And I 100% want to be involved in that.
Yeah, and I try to, when I write scenarios, I try to not be proscriptive and limit the player's agency in making choices that they're interested in and that they'll have fun with, so they get their own flavor too. I want to be able to work with them, not sort of put them, like, even if it's sort of a linear story, I want them to inhabit the space and make it their own as well. And like this scenario in particular, I think leaves a lot of room for that, because the stuff is going to happen around them. They have to react to it, and they bring whatever they're going to bring, and I just instruct, make big choices, right? That's usually how I run games anyways, and there's a lot of space for that, and I like it. I'd love to do that. I'd love to run this again with different combinations of people, just to see how it goes. And what I found when I played this with sort of what I'll call normies is that I like extending it to 2 hours. Yeah. Because that gives some more upfront space while they're waiting for the show to start to like interact with each other, which was actually feedback I got from Ross. And then a little more post time to sort of have more epilogue.
Yeah, I like that, because they did that. Because I felt that PX Poker Night did that really well.
Yeah.
Where you've got these things that are gonna happen, but there's a bunch of I think that would be.
But yeah,
it's a good idea. It's a good choice to make, to get people to get comfortable with these characters who may very soon get ripped away from them.
Oh yeah, but keeping the clock in real time for the play in that like 70 minutes is necessary.
Right. Okay. So the play itself. Yeah, I get what you mean. So the play technically is 70 minutes long. So
yes,
if your scenario is 90.
Yeah. What I'm doing is extending the like upfront time so they can get into the characters, get to interact with each other, so they can build some relationship, because it's intended for them to sort of come in as strangers. And also it gives a little time to interact with like the director who is at the gala because it's opening night.
Yeah.
And a couple other people who've worked with the play, or the bartender, and gives them sort of a way to interact with the space freeform before they have to go sit in their seats and then experience and react.
Which, to be fair, is, I've been to the theatre on numerous occasions, and that does happen,
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's grabbing a drink, and, I mean, not me, because I don't talk to people, but my partner, she talks to fucking everybody.
Oh, yeah.
Have you seen this play before? It's like, oh, here we fucking go again. She's making friends.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, I really like that scenario a lot. And Yeah, if you're curious about like me running and writing games, so
Yup.
for TTN, because we have our Halloween gauntlet that we're doing, I wrote and recorded the other day an alien RPG scenario
Oh, really?
that is coming out the 29th. Well, I'm in Germany. We just had tech issues, so we're pre-recording some stuff for the Halloween gauntlet.
Mm.
And that I got real excited about because I've just wanted to run like an alien RPG stream for ages. And this, I decided it was going to be a beach episode.
Okay.
So imagine alien horror, but it starts as a beach episode.
Okay, I'm already in. I'm already invested.
Yeah, and I love Alien so much. It's so formative in my youth. Like Alien, Aliens, and Alien 3 are movies that were touchstones for me.
Hmm.
And Romulus just really made me really want to do a stream. So I did.
Okay, so when you say a beach episode, do you mean they're actually on a beach?
Yes. Yep. They go to the yep. The conceit is that they are on a long haul, and because it's such a long haul with some grueling physical activity to deliver the goods, they get a shore leave that's paid for by the company.
You know.
So they go to a resort. And there's a moment where I really wanted to play the worst corporate ad I could imagine. So I had a friend who I've done some stuff with do a VO for me. And Mika from Roll D5 helped me write the copy for this terrible ad. And I put the most banal, soulless, like corporate music I could find underneath it. It's like a Disney vacation ad, is what it sounds like.
It's
amazing. Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm excited because it plays, and the only thing is that we couldn't like pipe the audio for it into like everyone's ears when we were recording, so they couldn't hear it. But then I like put it into our chat so they could listen. It's funny. It's real funny, and I can't wait for it to be in the stream. It's so dumb, and I love it.
You said that's on the 29th.
Yes, I believe it's on the 29th, yeah.
Okay, I will be watching that. I just love the concept.
Yeah, and like we had Calamity, I had Nick from Gehenna Gaming, I had Adam from 5 GMs in a Trench Coat, right? Or what are they? Oh my god, I feel like a dummy. And oh my god, who else was in there? I am having the worst brain fart because this week has been bananas, so I'm just gonna go right to my Discord chat and tell you exactly. Oh, Andy from Margot Mods Games. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and 5 Gems in a Trench Coat. Yep. Yeah, Adam Gonzalez. Yeah, this cast was so into it. It was a great time.
No, I mean I think just the concept of it. As someone who has lived in a beach resort.
Yeah.
Just the idea of, because you get the idea of like something horrific happening. That's, I mean, maybe it's me that's just a bit of a sociopath, but when you're in a beach resort, everybody's guard is down.
Yeah.
Everybody's relaxing. Everybody's guard is down. And there was a game where they kind of leaned heavily on that. I think it was one of the zombie games where it kind of happened. And I just think it is a fantastic fucking setting.
Yeah,
it's something bad to happen.
It's got strong vibes. Everyone knows what it looks and feels like. So it's something that's easy to latch onto to start a scenario, I think. Yeah, I actually for later, I just sent you my ad just as a little treat preview.
I think we could technically play it in here if you wanted.
If you wanna, I'll let you.
In the meantime, you carry on talking. I need to set this up because this is a bit.
Okay, yeah, sure. Yeah, so other things that I've been doing, so Monsters and Other Childish Things, I want to talk about that because that game is special to me. So I've been running a mini-series every other Friday night at 8 p.m. on the TTN Twitch channel. Monsters and Other Childish Things is the game that got me into indie TTRPGs. In 2012, it's also from Arc Dream, which, hilarious, unrelated to my love of Delta Green. I actually remember looking at advertising they had for Delta Green and going, this is a cop game. Why do I want to play this? But Monsters and Other Childish Things is about young kids who have monster best friends who cause chaos and mayhem. So you play these kids, and it's sort of an early rules-like game before we learned a lot about how to present indie RPGs or RPGs in general. And then the monsters can literally be anything, up to your imagination. The possibilities are endless. And they're co-run by the player and the GM. So the player gets to fight with the monster, like kind of like a Pokemon. And then the GM then uses the monster to create chaos. When the monster gets bored, they go do things that cause trouble. Monsters get aggressive with each other, so they want to fight each other. And this causes trouble for the kids, and then the kids have to resolve those issues. Monsters also have favorite things, like in our game, Rose Tears Online, she has Miss Bitsy, who's this like tiny fairy with massive anime eyes and like bug arms, and she loves shiny things. So if there's a shiny thing in the space, Miss Bitsy's gonna want that shiny thing and maybe break it. Or she's gonna get real mad, and then that causes chaos. And her character, Evie, has to negotiate with her monster best friend and like manipulate her into not going for the shiny thing, right? So it's these like 8-year-olds in third grade who are just dealing with nonsense, and they're monsters. And adults are generally unaware of these monsters. And so in the story, I set it off by sending them to the aquarium, where they just like they got in a monster fight on the school bus, which was hilarious. And then they got to the aquarium and went through a bunch of exhibits that caused monster mayhem. And then there was a monster that attacked them in like the top floor there. So that sets off the overall narrative. But the second episode, they find a dead body. That was it. Kids find a body. And it was their assistant principal, and just the body disappears. And now they're just sort of in the middle of a mystery. But the last episode was unhinged. So I had a whole idea, a whole plot planned that I was going to have them sort of follow along, make choices within. They were going to investigate mystery stuff, get further along in the narrative. And they decided to see that and then just go, hi, rails, goodbye. And went fully off the rails. It was a wild time. It was a brilliant episode. I think I had at least 2 players cry. It was a good time. It was great. Yeah.
Okay, there's cry because of pain or because in the best possible way.
It was good performance. They were emotionally invested in their characters, and their characters had emotionally overwhelming sadness, right? Like so basically the stakes were very high for one kid. Evie, they went over to her house, but her parents don't want anyone over there because she's a latchkey kid. And then one of the monsters made a terrible mess in the kitchen and ruined dinner. And that caused Evie and Zupria, Zoop Machine Online, her character, Porvi, sort of had a meltdown and ran away. And then her monster, the Marvelous Mango, ran away. It was a whole thing. But like both of them had these like intense moments for their characters, and that I think they both cried.
It's amazing. That does sound phenomenal, and I think the chaotic element is something that you must relish.
Oh, it's so good. And they do too. Like the cast is so perfect for this. They just get so into their 8-year-olds. But I also really love bringing in these chaotic moments, and then like because I'm co-playing the monster. And I do the monster voices. Every monster in my head is a Muppet. Just a big Lovecraftian Muppet. So like each monster is like within the book, like a Lovecraftian horror that is somehow bound to this child and feeding off of the childlike innocence. Like that's the conceit. But they also like deeply care about, to a terrifying degree, and like unwaveringly love these children. And they give off like unreal horror, but also Muppet vibe. The way they're written, the way I interpret them. Like Miss Bitsy just is the zigzagging fairy-like creature, so I'm constantly like just like screaming into my mic, like shifting back and forth, or using big goofy voices. Like there's Fruit Loop, which is just this big like furry monster dude with noodly arms.
So Justice.
Yeah, sure. And in my head, I think of Sweetums, the Muppet.
Okay, yeah.
So like when I think of his voice, I think of Sweetums. And so Marvelous Mango, Spree's character's monster, I think of like a high-pitched like Frank Oz voice. And like there's no specific Muppet there, but my brain goes to Frank Oz. So then he's just constantly like screaming, kind of like a gonzo. And then there's Mia Iosha Arts Online. She has Ollie, who's this half Filipino, half Chinese chubby kid with a bowl cut, and his monster is Squick, which is this like goofy sort of misshapen stuffed squid that turns into this horrible tentacled creature with too many teeth. It's so good. And then the fourth one, so there's Harper. So Cell plays Harper, which is this like almost on spectrum, wealthy, cold child who doesn't understand humans very well, who kind of lives alone with an au pair because her parents are always away. And that's the one who has Fruit Loop. And yeah, they have such an interesting chaotic dynamic between their monsters and then the kids themselves. And it's really fun to play with that dynamic. The book itself, the rules are not written as clearly as it would be today, because in 2012 it was written before everybody kind of learned a lot of lessons about how to present gaming information, especially for indie press. And I'm doing my best to proselytize this damn game so I can convince Arc Dream that there's enough of an audience so that way they can do a second edition.
Yeah, I mean, it's an interesting concept that we don't, it's not something that's been done. It's another fantasy game, or it's another set, or another set. This is something new. I won't say new because it's not.
Right. But it's different.
This is unique.
And it predates the kids on bikes trend. So it's a different kind of game. And the rules are interesting. They're written odd because they had a really cool idea, but I don't think at the time they knew how to present it as well as they might have now. So you get dice pools. So it's stat and skill. And each stat is assigned to a body part. So and it's D10 system. So you like basically distribute, so it's standard for humans, like 1 to 3 would be a hit location, 4 to 5 is another, 6 to 7, 8 to 9, and then 10. That's like feet, hands, guts, head, face, I think is all of the different hit locations. Now there are different skills for kids associated with them. And basically you add the number of dice associated with a skill and the number of dice associated with its related stat. You roll them and you look for doubles.
Okay.
Yep. And then for like a contested roll, you want the higher double. Doesn't matter how many match unless it needs to be faster. Then you go for the what's called wider roll, which is, like 3 of a kind versus 2 of a kind.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's a really cool concept and I love it. And it, because of how it's explained, and it's different from how we typically see games communicate rules, and just even the rule system itself is different. It's clunky at first, but once you get into it, it's great. It's a great system. And it's really adaptable because you can take that and you can apply it to the monsters, which is you get a number of dice, right? And then you just assign them to hit locations.
Yeah.
Any number of dice to those hit locations, 1 through 10. Split them up how you want. So then you can make your monster anything you want. You define it any way you want. And it's fully freeform, but it uses the same rule. Because what you're doing is you're making sets of dice pools. And it's really cool.
Yeah, I like that. I like the looking for doubles.
Yeah, and then it also leans a little bit, because Delta Green was already out, on bonds, but it calls them relationships. So what it does instead is you can use a relationship that is important to you to add dice to your dice pool that you're rolling. So say it's relevant, like say you're rolling to take a spelling quiz. And you want to use your relationship with your mom because you know your mom's going to get mad if you fail your quiz.
Yeah.
You can use the dice in that pool of that relationship for that roll. But if you fail it, your relationship goes into shock. And that makes sense because like you did this for your mom, you fail because it's important to your mom.
Your mom's going to be pissed off.
Your mom's going to be mad. So then you have to spend quality time with her because you're going to lose a die and it goes into shock. So you have to spend quality time to be able to use it again and to build that back up.
That sounds really interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. And monsters feed on emotional energy, right? Because they're Lovecraftian horrors. Yeah. So they can use your relationship dice.
Right, okay.
Those you can't recover because they eat them. And then if they fail, right? And then when monsters fight, they can chew off parts of the other monster that loses. So it's like taking a bite out of that other monster.
So they lose a stat, as it were. They lose stat points.
Yes, because damage is also, like, your stats are also your health.
Yeah.
So when you take damage to your skills and stats. Because that's where your hit locations are.
Yeah.
It's this interesting balance because all the stats and skills are very plastic in the game. Because there's not like a level progression. This was, I think, at the time very unique. It's really cool. It's the whole system itself is based off of another, like a superhero game that I think Greg Stolze wrote, but it was adapted for this.
I'm looking it up now. It's the One Roll engine.
Yeah, there you go.
And it was developed by Greg Stolze for the alternate history superhero role-playing game Godlike.
Yep, Godlike. Yeah.
Now that sounds phenomenal, though.
Yeah, it's a really cool game.
Yeah, I mean, if you've sold me on monsters and other childish things.
Yeah, I will say, being in 2012, some of the language is a little outdated. Like because it was 2012 and they were trying to use language that is like language kids use, it drops like the R word once early in the book.
Yeah.
Which I don't love. But that was the period, and we've grown since then, and the Arc Dream guys have significantly grown since then. They would not do that again. Then that's one of the reasons I want like a revision of the book, is because I want it to be updated with a lot of the lessons learned we've had in the last 12 years. And there have been many.
So, just putting this out there. All right? Because you are on speaking terms with some of them, you know, what about if you were to say, what if I did a revision of the book?
I may or may not have been actively lobbying them, and may or may not have already suggested that to one or two people. And I may or may not be taking notes as I'm writing my mini-series for rule ideas, and may just in the future decide to put something together and just throw it in their direction and see what they say. It's more complicated than that. And also I had a serious, like, what would it take question just to know. And it's more complicated than that. Yeah. But I want to have a more serious conversation eventually. If I can demonstrate there's an audience, which means me playing more monsters, building an audience for this game, showing that I can get engagement, talking about it with more people, that stuff. If I can really build an audience, I think I might be able to lobby, seriously, because I think we can show that there's a market for the game.
Okay, what do we need to do? Do we need to promote? Let's fucking promote.
Heck yeah.
Let's do it. Let's promote the shit out of it, because, yeah, I'm invested.
Yeah, it's a really cool game. It really is.
And to be honest, I mean, like, putting it in a purely fiscal sort of realm, if Arc Dream were to do that in order to capture a younger market,
I think they could. I mean, their hands are so full with what they've already got. Like, they are constantly working on Delta Green and literally everything else they have going. Yeah. And if there's not like a very actively hungry market for something, I don't think they just have the bandwidth. That's part of it. I mean,
I 100% appreciate it.
In all honesty, I think that it will take me literally writing a book and going, "Hey, you want to see if we can make this work? I wrote a book for you." Like because I'm the one who's interested in this game.
Yeah.
And what it's going to take is me probably doing a heavy lift and then demonstrating a market exists to buy it. That's probably it.
All right. Well, as always, any help you need?
Yeah. And of course, this is all in my own head and speculative, and Arc Dream has endorsed nothing here, and I just want to make that certain everyone knows.
To be honest, we don't have a big enough audience for that to ever be a problem.
That's fine. I just want to make sure I'm covering my ass.
Yeah, of course. The views, the views expressed within this podcast are in no way related to the views expressed by Arc Dream Publisher.
By the way, total change of pace. I just realized I accidentally am drinking from a mug of myself. So I'll show you this. I made mugs for Christmas one year. I should really sell these because these are hilarious. So this is me.
Nice.
I that look is from a while ago, and I just have such a good unhinged old lady. I love it.
I remember seeing a picture of that. I just kind of went, that's fucking phenomenal. So, your ad has uploaded.
Oh, heck yeah. Let's listen to it.
All right, let's listen to the ad for your Alien Beach game. So it's going
I'm very excited here. Rachel Cordell did the reading, and it is so good. It sounds like such a terrible Disney vacation ad, and I'm so obsessed.
I think I've actually heard that ad at a previous organization I worked at.
I think I've heard that music.
Yeah, I mean, that, you know, and the whole, we appreciate you.
Yeah,
Really?
Yeah. I've heard enough corporate BS nonsense to issue some of my own.
No, that is phenomenal.
Yeah, I'm so proud of that.
You could quite easily place it in any corporation. And
Mm-hmm.
because these things are never listened to anyway,
Oh yeah, like you could
you'd get
play
a few
that
plays.
just like over like just stock B-roll of like white people on beaches in the Caribbean in like slow motion. Like I can see it now. There's like a palm tree waving in the wind. This like white woman with like bleached hair in like a sarong and a bikini, just like sipping a Mai Tai, standing in profile against the ocean behind her.
Yeah, and there's a couple playing like wooden paddles with a ball
Yep.
just in the shallows. Kids running around like completely slathered up in sunscreen.
Yep, someone is like splashing water in the ocean in slow motion, so you get like the glittering wave.
Yes.
Yes.
And you get someone diving off a pier.
Yes.
That's always it. Either off a pier or off a rock, depending on.
Oh yeah, but it's like a low angle shot looking up at them. It's like a young white guy in like Bahama shorts just like doing a cannonball.
Yeah, and you kind
Smiling.
of like the shot is from just beneath the water.
Yes.
Where you can kind of see the ripples.
Mm-hmm.
Which is just clearly a fucking filter on
and it ends in like a freeze frame that's just like, thank you, Wayland Utani. Yeah.
And it's just happiness.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
Yeah.
Yeah, I have seen that. I mean, I used to see that advert for the resort in which I used to live.
Incredible.
And it was like, yeah, you're not showing the amount of people that get fingered down the beach.
Oh, God, the sand. Ooh.
Yeah, just how about the used condoms that are down there?
Oh, boy. Mallorca will never be the same.
Mallorca is yeah, it's glorious. Oh. Yes, the good old days, But yeah, I used to get that like Jet2 holidays, come to Alcudia, Mallorca, and they used to just show all these places. And I'm just I could probably, on every sort of cut, I won't go into any details, but I could mention some seedier things that have happened in that very fucking spot.
Oh, I have no doubt.
That's where Stanto did this.
Oh, yeah. Hospitality is a wild job.
Oh, I'm out of it now. I'm done. They've raised my jersey up to the rafters with my bottle opener. There it is. I'm never ever again bartending, because fuck that. I now make sure that people who need it get the scans that they need. So I'm on the other side of the health industry, as it were.
Heck yeah.
So yeah, that sounds phenomenal. And like the monsters and other childish things. Let's get that ball rolling. So we need to support this. How can we support this? What can we do?
Yeah, well, tuning into my miniseries, and I'm going to lobby for a second season as well, making sure that people are talking about monsters and other childish things, right? So, like, getting the word out about the miniseries we're putting out there is really critical, because then more people will see it, more people will watch it, more people will talk about it, and then that gives evidence for, hey, people are interested in engaging. Then that lets me say, hey, what if I just happened to try to put an edit together for like proposing a second edition and at least get something started. And I think it'll take a little while to get there, but as TTN is growing, and we've grown our leadership team, we've doubled it, because it was just Emma, and then it was me and Emma, and now we have Haven and Yuri, and we are producing so much more content now. We're also doing streaming. Like, we're growing, and as we grow, we'll bring in more audience, and that will get more eyeballs on this stuff, and we can really help support the indie gaming like sphere, which is where my passion lies. So
yeah, I mean, TTN do some fantastic stuff. I mean, because when we learned about TTN, it was just Emma.
Yeah, because that was probably before I started.
The show. Yeah, not long before though. You started very shortly after. We had Emma on the show, and it was just such a wonderful person.
I love Emma to death. She works her butt off so hard all the time, and it's ridiculous. Like, she and I are working our butts off in different ways, I have negative time on the clock,
Yeah.
and because of the day job just taking up so much of my time on top of all the other commitments I have. And she is just round the clock working on editing, herding cats, dealing with like just management of the network all the time. She's amazing.
No, she is, and it is a great network. You put out some amazing stuff.
We're
And
trying. Yeah.
you know, I am honored and thrilled to have been a small part of that, which I still maintain is aired tomorrow. I need to double check that. But yeah, you know, just to kind of be a small part of that, for me, it was such a fucking huge honor.
Oh, come on, you're fantastic.
And but it was fantastic to meet because I'd never met Andy before. I've played with Peachy a couple of times, but I'd never met Andy before. We, like the three of us, we bounced off each other so fucking well. Peachy was definitely the voice of reason of the party.
That tracks.
As per usual, I was the opposite of that.
Yeah. I get that. Relatable.
Andy was kind of in the middle, but it just worked so well. And our characters, because we'd used Monster Hearts and created these strings, our characters already went in with these, for want of another word, bonds that were already there. And it was such a phenomenal time. And I am trying to stall as I look for when it is going to be released.
You're vamping. Okay.
I'm vamping as best as I can.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I mean, we have so much going on. There's also another one shot I'm doing in November. So there's this game called Under the Autumn Strangely that is this really interesting dice-free game that I found at Gen Con, written by Grim Gents. And that's going to be me, Emma, and Rara. And it's a co-narrative story where we're basically telling a story together where someone is going under the autumn strangely, and two of us will basically play the environment. One of us will be sort of the source of conflict and the other will be the world.
That's interesting.
Yeah, it's really cool. So our session 0 is coming up, I think this week, or no, the first week of November. And then I think November, like the 15th or so, is going to be our one shot. And I'm really excited because it's a cool game. Yeah, I've gotten to know Graham actually because I met him at Gen Con, and that's when I picked up the book. And he's going to walk us through our session 0, so that way we understand the rule set clearly. And yeah, it's just going to be this weird time, especially with Rara. I'm so excited, like, because Rara's ability to just make odd, like, fluid choices. Emma will bring like her own brand of sort of goal-oriented but very creative choices, and then I will add chaos where I can. I think this will be a really interesting one-shot, and it'll be very different from what we've done in the past, so I'm really excited about that one.
No, that sounds interesting as well. I mean, you guys do so many, like, and what I like about the network is because it is so varied. You know, you do multiple shows and multiple sort of properties, multiple systems, but at the same time, nothing feels like a repeat. Nothing feels like we've seen something similar to this in this other in everything you guys do. Every individual show is its own property. It's its own sort of vibe to it. I hate using that. I feel like I get it, though. Old like to use that word.
Nah, no, like we don't do something unless it is creatively interesting.
Yeah,
because at least it's my belief, and it's Emma's belief too. I'm pretty sure I can speak for her on this. That like if we are not creatively interested in it, it's not going to be good content. Right? It's not going to be a good performance and something interesting to watch long term. So when we put something together, we're really interested in finding things that drive us and interest us and like set us up creatively. That's why like I really wanted to do an Alien one shot because I was creatively inspired. I've wanted to do it a long time. Or like I've mentioned to you, I think the last time I was here, how I want to do like a long form Delta Green AP set in the 1950s.
Yeah.
And I want to really lean on like sci-fi B movies and tell that story. And I'm really excited to do that. And I just have to take a long time to put it all together because I'm so perfectionist, frankly. But I also just want the resources necessary to make the best possible show.
Yeah.
And also get more like GMing long form under my belt. But like that's something that interests me. I am deeply engaged in that concept.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to do it if it weren't, because we're so booked all the time with something that anything we're going to do has to be something we want to do.
I mean, that is kind of why I took a step back from doing the crit list every week,
Mm-hmm.
because it got to the point where we were gonna kind of run out of content to do. It's like, okay, I need something. It's like, no.
Yeah.
At this point, I'm getting something just to fill a slot.
Yeah.
Whereas now, we just recorded half of a run of Shadowlight and Persona by our good friend Craig Tezrak the Imp Slayer.
Oh, cool.
And that'll be, once we get everything recorded, we'll start airing that. But once that finishes, unless I've got something else that comes along and interests me, all right, well, the crit list will be on hiatus. When something comes along,
Mm-hmm.
you know, when you come along and you run your King in Yellow,
Yes.
that's going to be like, all right, yeah, let's put it out there, because it is something we're interested in putting out to the world. But yes, I do completely get that mentality, and it is a fantastic one to have, because it gives you the passion and the drive
Mm-hmm.
to do the content you want to create, as opposed to the content you feel you should create.
Yeah. Yeah.
But that is nearly all we got time for
Thank you.
tonight. It has absolutely flown by. I only know that because I looked at how long we've been talking. So, do you want to tell people about where they can find you, how they can get involved with all the fantastic stuff you're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Send a pre-posted letter via carrier pigeon, or you can find me on the social media at Juicy Garland or at juicy.garland. If I'm there, search one, you'll find the other. You can find me on All Our Faults, which is a TTN-produced Monster Hearts 2 actual play podcast where I play the messiest, gayest vampire. We do a ton of other stuff with TTN as well, so pay attention to at Tabletop Tailspinners and other TTN media in addition to my own. I also have recently done a mini-series with The Queer XP, which is fantastic. Eric, the GM and the creator of The Queer XP, is a dear friend from the Boston area, and we did a Moonlight on Roseville Beach, which, if you don't know, is a wonderful game about sort of queer pulp in the 1970s. And it's got some weird horror elements. I played a messy gay witch. I really stretched myself for that one. Yeah, so all sorts of stuff coming up, both streamed and audio content. I have a game with the Queer XP planned in January, which is Sexy Battle Wizards, which is a one-pager that should be absurd. And I, like I mentioned, have Under the Autumn Strangely coming out with TTN in November. The Monsters and Other Childish Things every other Friday, though we're skipping this. We just had it this past Friday, so the next cycle we're skipping because I will be in Europe. And yeah, all sorts of other stuff because I'm busier than I should be.
That is phenomenal. And, you know, yeah, check out everything that Juicy is involved with. Check out everything from TTN. They put out some fantastic content.
Thank you.
As for me, you can find me at Natural Juan at Dice.camp on Mastodon, at Natural.Juan on Threads, which is where I'm mostly active. I'm also on Blue Sky, Instagram, Facebook, wherever you see Too Legit to Crit. Chances are I'm behind it. If you like what we do and you want to see more, you can give us a like, a rating, subscribe, or even just tell your friends about us. We're loving this community and we want to see it grow. Thank you, Juicy, for coming in on short notice and just covering for Atlas. Atlas will be back next week, folks. Hopefully her game is running great and she has TPK'd everybody.
Good.
Fingers crossed. But most importantly of all, thank you to everyone who's taken time out of their busy day to listen to two people waffle on about tabletop role-playing games. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good night.
Night.